ready to unlock some secrets of a language that's more than just, a pretty name.
Mm-hmm.
Today's deep dive takes us to Hawaii.
Oh.
But not just for the beaches and volcanoes. We're going deep into the story of the Hawaiian language itself.
Right.
And you've got some sources about its history, right?
They do.
So we'll uncover how it went from ancient chants to, get this, facing near extinction.
Wow.
And the amazing revival that's happening right now. Pretty exciting stuff.
What's so captivating about the Hawaiian language is that it's like its journey. It mirrors the island's own turbulent past. You've got the cultural exchanges, the struggles for survival.
Right.
And ultimately this resilience.
And it all starts, of course, with the word Hawaii itself.
Right.
I was surprised to learn that its pronunciation has taken quite a journey since Captain Cook's arrival.
Yeah, it's a classic case of these early encounters leading to some interesting linguistic interpretations. Yeah. Imagine trying to capture a completely new language with only your own as a reference point.
Right.
That's what Cook faced back in 1778.
Right. He wrote down Owaihi in his log.
Yeah.
Our sources say Cook probably heard something closer to the actual pronunciation Hawaii, but that spelling.
Yeah.
It reflects how English sounded way back then.
Exactly. Back then, W in English sounded more like Y, making Y sound like Y.
Oh, wow.
And then you add in the accents and dialects of sailors, and, well, you can see how things could get a little,
muddled.
Yeah, muddled.
It's fascinating how those linguistic breadcrumbs can paint a picture of history, huh?
It is.
But there's more to that O that Cook recorded than just, mispronunciation, right?
Absolutely. That O offers a glimpse into Hawaiian grammar, actually.
Okay.
You see, using O before a name emphasizes someone's identity. It's like saying the one and only.
Oh.
So, O Hawaii isn't just Hawaii, it's more like it is Hawaii.
Okay.
Subtle difference.
Yeah.
But crucial for understanding how the language is structured.
It's amazing how much weight a single letter can carry in a language.
Yeah.
And what about that mark above the O, the okina?
Right.
What's the deal with that?
The okina. It represents a sound we don't really have in English, the glottal stop.
Oh, right.
It's a tiny pause, almost like a catch in your throat.
Yeah, yeah.
But it changes a word's sound and meaning.
Interesting.
These seemingly small details, they actually reveal a lot about how a language functions.
It's like each language has its own musicality, its own rhythm.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit to the 1820s and the arrival of missionaries.
Okay.
This is where written Hawaiian enters the scene.
Right.
What motivated that change?
Well, the missionaries, their goal was to translate the Bible and teach literacy.
Right.
And they faced a huge challenge because they had to develop a writing system for a language that had only ever been spoken.
So did they just invent a whole new alphabet from scratch?
Well, rather than reinventing the wheel, they opted to use the Latin alphabet, the one we're familiar with.
Okay.
But they made some key adaptations. They narrowed it down to 12 letters, 5 vowels, and 7 consonants, and arranged with vowels first.
Interesting.
It was a massive undertaking, but they managed to achieve widespread literacy incredibly fast.
Our sources say that in just a few decades, nearly the entire adult population could read and write.
It's pretty remarkable.
That's remarkable. To go from an entirely oral tradition to a literate society that rapidly, it makes you wonder if that speed could be replicated in language revitalization efforts today.
It's an intriguing thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
It speaks to the adaptability of language and, the human capacity for learning. But this period also, unfortunately, planted the seeds for some difficult times ahead.
You're talking about the 1893 overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy.
Right.
A turning point for the language, as our sources highlight. How did that event impact Hawaiian?
Well, this is where we see a shift from cultural exchange to something more akin to linguistic suppression.
Okay.
With the monarchy's fall, the new government heavily favored English.
So it wasn't an outright ban on Hawaiian?
No.
More like a systematic sidelining?
Precisely.
How did that play out?
In 1896, a law mandated English as the primary language in all schools. While not explicitly forbidding Hawaiian, imagine being a child punished for speaking the language you used at home.
Right.
That disconnect has a powerful impact.
It's heartbreaking to think about the cultural and linguistic loss that must have occurred. But as our sources detail, the Hawaiian language found ways to endure even in the face of such adversity.
Yeah, and that leads us to a place where Hawaiian not only survived but thrived.
Okay.
The island of Niihau.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the language's resilience,
Right.
and the power of a community that's so dedicated to preserving it.
Our sources describe Niihau as the Forbidden Island.
Right.
What makes it so unique?
Well, access is heavily restricted
Okay.
to protect its culture, its way of life. And because of this isolation, Niihau is the only place in Hawaii where Hawaiian remains the primary language spoken.
Wow.
Imagine, like, growing up, hearing your grandparents, your parents, everyone around you speaking Hawaiian as their first language.
Yeah.
It's like stepping back in time.
It sounds like a linguist's dream. But our sources mention that the Niihau dialect is different from what's taught in schools and universities today.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how language evolves.
Right.
When a community is geographically isolated, like on Niihau, their dialect takes its own path.
Huh.
Niihau Hawaiian has unique pronunciations, vocabulary, even grammatical structures,
Okay.
different from what's considered like standard Hawaiian.
So you have this incredibly well-preserved form of Hawaiian existing alongside this like growing movement to revitalize the language in the broader community.
Right.
Did those two worlds ever, I don't know, collide?
You've hit upon a really interesting point. Bridging that gap hasn't always been easy.
Yeah.
There's been some friction between Niihau speakers and those who learn through revitalization efforts.
That makes sense. It's like two branches of the same family tree trying to reconnect after years of growing in different directions.
Right, exactly.
What were some of the challenges that they face?
Well, one point of contention has been the introduction of new words.
Oh, right.
Think about it. How do you say computer or internet in a language that predates those concepts?
That's a good point. It makes you wonder, how do you translate modern concepts like selfie into a language with such a different historical context?
Exactly. Organizations like the Hawaiian Lexicon Committee have this really tough job
Oh, I bet.
of creating these new Hawaiian words.
Right.
They try to stay true to the language's spirit,
Right.
sometimes using existing roots and other times, adapting English terms.
I imagine that sparks some pretty lively debates.
It certainly does. Nihawans, for example, they often prefer to coin new words organically based on their own cultural understanding.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you have those who learned, University Hawaiian,
Yeah.
who are more accustomed to the standardized terms.
Right.
It really highlights a central tension in language revitalization,
Yeah.
balancing the preservation of tradition with the need to adapt to a changing world.
Striking that balance is so crucial. It's not just about memorizing words, but understanding how language evolves alongside culture.
Right.
And speaking of revitalization, our sources mention this fascinating program called Punana Leo,
Yeah.
which means language nest.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the Punana Leo movement has been so instrumental in bringing Hawaiian back into the education system.
Okay.
They had this, I don't know, I guess you could call it a radical idea back in the 1980s to create preschools where kids were immersed in Hawaiian.
So instead of simply learning about the language, they were learning through the language.
How's that?
What a shift in perspective.
It was revolutionary.
Yeah.
These language nests, they gave kids a safe, nurturing space to acquire Hawaiian naturally,
Yeah.
just like they would their first language.
Yeah.
And the results have been remarkable.
I can only imagine. To be surrounded by a language from such a young age, it's like a superpower for the brain.
It is.
What happened as those kids, grew up?
The impact has been profound. That first generation of Punana Leo kids are adults now, fluent speakers raising their own children with Hawaiian.
That's incredible. It really does feel like,
Yeah.
witnessing a language coming back to life. It's not just preschools anymore, though, right?
Not at all. That initial spark,
Yeah.
it ignited a resurgence in Hawaiian language education.
Yeah.
Today, you have K-12 immersion schools, university programs, even online resources like Duolingo.
Oh, wow.
It's more accessible than ever.
That's amazing. But I'm curious, what's it like for these kids learning Hawaiian in a predominantly English-speaking world? I mean, it must be like navigating two different realities.
It is a unique experience. One of our sources describes this teaching method used in these immersion schools called the Peak method.
Hey, Peak.
Yeah, Big Peak.
Does that have something to do with squids?
It does.
Okay.
Peak means squid in Hawaiian,
Hmm.
and it's used as a metaphor to teach sentence structure.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. A squid teaching grammar. Tell me more.
All right, so picture a squid.
Okay.
You've got the head, the tentacles, and then the body connecting them, right?
Right.
Each part represents a different part of a sentence.
So the head is like the verb, the
Yes.
action of the sentence.
You got it.
Okay.
The tentacles represent the object of the verb, and the body connecting them is the subject.
Huh?
It's a clever way to make grammar, which can sometimes feel very abstract, more concrete and relatable.
Leave it to the Hawaiians to make grammar fun. It's so inspiring to see the creative ways they're teaching the language. But with all this talk of standard Hawaiian and university Hawaiian, it makes me think about the bigger picture. What does it even mean for a language to be considered authentic in today's world?
You've hit upon a complex
Yeah.
and fascinating question,
Yeah.
one that's central to the Hawaiian language revitalization effort.
We've been diving deep into, the history of this language, and we're left with this question, and it feels, honestly, even bigger than grammar rules. What makes a language authentic?
Oh, wow.
It's really a loaded word, especially when you think about everything Hawaiian has gone through.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you think about the layers of cultural exchange, the impact of colonialism, and then this incredible revival happening today, it really begs the question, where do you draw the line? You know, what is like real Hawaiian at this point?
It's a question without, any easy answers. And
Right.
our sources point to different perspectives.
Well,
Like
right.
those who see University Hawaiian, that standardized form
Right,
as
yeah.
the most, quote unquote, correct.
Right, and that there's a certain logic to that. Standardization is useful for teaching, for writing, for creating that kind of shared understanding across generations.
But then you have those who say that this kind of textbook Hawaiian, it feels too rigid,
Right.
too far removed from the way people, actually speak it in their daily lives.
Exactly. Our sources highlight this fascinating dynamic with, native Hawaiian elders, many of whom grew up speaking a form of Hawaiian, quite different from what you'd find in a textbook.
So it's like saying your grandparents, they could be fluent speakers,
Right.
but they might not ace a grammar quiz on official Hawaiian.
Precisely. Their Hawaiian is colored by, the nuances of their lives, their communities. Perhaps it incorporates elements of Pidgin Hawaiian.
Right.
That fascinating blend of English and Hawaiian that emerged from, all of those cross-cultural interactions.
Yeah.
It reflects their lived experience.
Right.
Which, for some, embodies that true essence of authenticity.
It's like the difference between, a carefully curated garden
Right.
and like a wildflower meadow. Okay. Both are beautiful, both are valuable, and both are authentic in their own right.
I love that analogy. It gets to the heart of the matter. Who gets to decide?
Yeah.
Who gets to decide what's authentic when it comes to language?
Right.
Is it linguists, educators,
Huh.
or is it ultimately the speakers themselves?
It's a question that resonates far beyond Hawaii, too. I mean, as more languages face these challenges to their survival, defining authenticity, it becomes crucial for these revitalization efforts. But it seems like there's no, one-size-fits-all answer.
You're right, and that's where the beauty of language comes in.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving, adapting to the changing world around it.
Right.
The key is to approach that evolution with respect and sensitivity.
So celebrating those unique dialects, passed down through generations, while also making space for younger generations to learn and adapt the language for today's world.
Exactly. Imagine these different strands of Hawaiian, not as competing forces, but as threads woven together, creating a tapestry even richer and more vibrant for its complexity. Wow. It's a tapestry that honors the language's deep roots while at the same time embracing its boundless potential.
It's a powerful image. And as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the Hawaiian language, it leaves me with this thought. How can we each contribute to keeping languages alive? Not just Hawaiian, but all languages facing challenges. It's a question I think worth pondering as we navigate this, incredible world of words and the cultures they represent.
It certainly is. And on that note, a hui hao until we meet again.